Hey, who said midlife can't be fun and who said Gen Z can't lead this conversation? You're listening to Midlife Decoded, your next chapter playbook. I'm Valery.
And I'm Elmer. We are two Gen Z founders decoding midlife in Asia, from health, menopause, mental fitness, purpose, and everything that matters.
Ready to decode the change and own the chapter? Let's go. Ever have a night where sleep ghosted you, your mood showed up early, and a tiny comment felt huge? If that's you, you're not broken. You're in midlife.
Welcome to Midlife Decoded, your next chapter playbook. We keep it real, Asia first, and zero anti-splaining.
Shout out to Alliance Counselling, a Singapore team of 33 multilingual counselors and psychologists supporting children, teens, adults, couples, and families with therapy, psychological assessment, and workshops since 2009.
And one of their pros, Kiki, is here with us today. Buckle in, let's decode the midlife mind.
Welcome, Kiki. Loving having you joining us on Midlife Decoded podcast with us.
This is so exciting, Valery and Elmer. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, Kiki, just to set the stage, why does midlife mental wellness matter so much in Asia, where we don't necessarily chat or talk about this very often?
I think there's so many elements to that, right? Like the level of change that individuals experience. And when I'm talking about individuals, you have to think about individuals in systems. So systems of families that are intergenerational. So when one person is going through a lot of change, that has an impact on relationships, that has an impact on workplace, that has an impact on how they're coping. And so it makes it so much more important that we bring some light on this very important phase of life that people are experiencing, and what the two of you are doing are just incredible, right? Through Surety.
Yeah, and we would definitely love to hear on what is it that you are doing at Alliance Counselling as well.
So I work at Alliance. I work as a psychotherapist and an executive coach. I work with adults and couples, and I work along all of the mental health areas and some of the big life transitions, which impacts mental health quite significantly. Mm-hmm. So whether it's perimenopause, whether it's, divorce, whether it's children leaving the home for university, so all of those types of things that impact individuals and couples.
So when you come to being a psychotherapist, right, and when someone is, say, ready for support, so what might be on the table, example like self-care, therapy, psych assessment workshops, and maybe couples work or even health check?
Yes. So I think you're absolutely right, Valery. I think it might include any of those things, but so much of it is based on the unique needs of that individual. So really, what are they looking for? What kind of support they need? Where do they think that their experiences in life can be more fulfilling? And then we meet them where they're at and journey with them, from that point on. And it could include any of the things that you suggested. Save the health checkups. We're not a medical clinic. So we are a team of counselors and psychologists, and we do everything around the mental health space. And then we liaise with medical doctors like GPs and psychiatrists where we need to.
So hey Kiki, here's a story. So it started with, my mom gaslights me. She dismisses my feelings. She blames me. And, with her whole kind of like screwed up menses period and stuff like that, I think she's probably perimenopausal. And, with that, it feels very one-sided. So what could be happening to her? I want to understand that.
I think that's a great question, Valery. And I think so many of us miss even like anchoring on what you've just anchored on, which is curiosity. And I would encourage all, partners, friends, anyone experience sudden mood swings and you're thinking, is this perimenopause, adult children? The curiosity that you've anchored on is, I think, one of the core things that we can use to really explore, right? Learn about it. So that's a fantastic question. So let's say it might be perimenopause. If you think about what's happening in her body right now, it's a chaotic hormonal situation where estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are all having their own say, and it is it's completely different from what she's been experiencing since the time of puberty. And it's quite understandable that it's resulting in some of the mood swings, in perhaps some of the symptoms around irritability, frustration, not really like being able to be there for you like she has before. So that's a very understandable and normal, actually. It's painful, but it's normal. So one of the things is just ask Mom, what's happening? Like, how can I be there for you? Can you help me understand what's happening? And she may or may not be able to give you the answer, but what you're doing right now, which is reaching out, reading up, understanding what's going on and helping her get on board. You know, sharing things with her, telling her, saying, hey, Mom, do you think it could be this? Should we go explore it? I heard about this like doctor who's doing some good work around it. Can we go and talk to her? You know, so I think it's those types of conversations that can really progress it, because so much of this is hidden inside around like shame and stigma, because women are not really used to talking about these things, right? It was just meant to be a transition phase. You get over it, tahan it, you know, but why? So it's not just about what, you know, you as adult kids can do to speak to Mom and bring her to the table and talk to her and help her understand and, you know, take her to a professional, get her to connect with friends perhaps. I mean, there's so many strategies in that. But I'd also say to all the women who are listening, if you have a teen in the house, teen and up, go and have proactive conversations with your children about this. Talk to them about what's happening, educate them about what's happening with you. Because while they're going through puberty, you are not going through something that's that different. It's very similar. The level of hormonal fluctuation in your body is very similar to what's happening with them. So teen and up, go and have the conversation, open it up. So it's also, you know, some of it is as women experiencing perimenopause and menopause, can I start to open this conversation? Can I take that first step and have that conversation with my kids?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting the part where you talk about how the roles kind of switched. So like when you're younger, your mom is always the one being there for you and you're just receiving it. But then I think as you get older, like reaching our 20s and my mom being in her 50s, the whole role changes because it becomes like, how do I then be there for her, right? So it's very interesting like how, you know, midlife is such a phase, right, where everyone could come together and really just sit down, kind of talk about it, normalizing it, especially in, you know, Asia context as well.
Yeah, and you know, you can even use, there was a landmark study towards the end of 2023 around menopausal women in Singapore. And you can even share data with Mom and say, Mom, you know, more than 60% of women are having moderate to severe symptoms. And of those symptoms, the top 5 are anywhere from joint pain to, you know, muscle discomfort and sleep disturbances and vaginal dryness and mental exhaustion. So just even sharing this with her might normalize it for Mom to talk to you about these things, right?
I feel like if I were to throw statistics at her, she will be just get to the point.
Oh, really? My mom would be so happy if I threw math at her. She said, oh, yeah, okay, let's have a conversation about this.
Your numbers talk, mine no. I have to tell her a story and I gotta give her like cause and effect kind of like scenario. Oh, Mom, if you don't do this, oh my God, when you're 50, you're gonna be like wrinkly, you're gonna be like slanted, you know, things like that. I feel like that's how I would converse with my mom. Yeah, I mean, you know, in many Asian homes, right, silence in a way is kind of like respect. So I grew up thinking that I need to speak up, that nothing will change, right? Because you tell them and then nothing happens. So better than to, you know, just keep the peace, right? So how do you think adults or children can speak up more effectively when it comes to, say, a parent that's navigating these midlife changes, like my mom?
I think one of the things you could consider when you are speaking up is perhaps setting some time up to have that conversation. So if Mom's going through perimenopause and you want to talk about something that's possibly, do you feel like it might bring about conflict? Is that the question? Did I get that right? Or
I would say it's more like, you know, if I bring it up, right, she'll be like, and then?
Okay.
All right, you feel like it's a bit more resistant to change.
Yeah.
then you'd be like, oh, what for am I telling you this? Because I know in the end you're not going to change.
You know what exactly you can do to convince mom. So you know your mom better than I could possibly ever know mom. So whatever it is, for my mom, it's numbers. I have to show her the data, send her a research study, and then she might say, okay, let's have a conversation. For your mom, like you said, it might be cause and effect. So perhaps talking to a few of her friends, connecting her with friends who might be experiencing it, connecting her with your friends' parents who are a little bit more open to this, sort of bringing her along for a community event. Those are the types of things that I would say just helps open it up. And I'd say be patient, because this takes a lot of time. One, because as somebody experiencing perimenopause, already I'm feeling a little bit like my confidence is hit. I don't feel the same anymore. Something's not working quite right. And I'm not talking about severe symptoms right now. I'm just talking about a little bit like something feels a bit off for me. So be a little bit patient. It might take more than that one conversation for her to get on board. But keep at it. Be gentle.
Maybe let's flip the script a little. I think there are some female listeners that might be going through menopause that are listening to this. Perhaps maybe then what is the best way to then advocate for yourself? Maybe not just within your family, but also within your communities as well, right? I think we do have ladies in our community who feedback saying that it's kind of awkward for me to share that, hey, I'm menopausal, right? I have these hot flashes that happen, say in the workplaces or at home when I'm having my mood swings. Well, how do I best convey and maybe share that I would need help and support during this phase in my life?
Well, for all the listeners who might be experiencing symptoms of perimenopause or menopause, I would recommend start making a list of those symptoms. That's a very simple first thing to start doing. So every month, get a calendar. There's lots of free apps out there, lots of menopause apps out there. So get one that's reliable, run by somebody who is, trusted, has a medical background or medical advisors on board. Starting to track your symptoms can really help, one, for you to be able to have that conversation with a general practitioner, because that might be your first port of call. So when you go into a GP, they don't always have, they may have time, they may not have time. It really depends on where you end up going to the GP, right? And then at that time, remembering, oh, wait, last month this happened. Oh, wait, last month that happened. It's really hard. A lot of these apps actually give you a report of your symptoms month on month. So you just have that ready. You can have that conversation with the GP. The other thing that listeners can think about is, what are the symptoms like? So if it is severe symptoms, going to the medical practitioners, I would say the first port of call, right? If the symptoms come up more as brain fog, anxiety, depression, lack of self-esteem, self-confidence, who am I today? Why do I not feel like myself? These are all identity questions, right? I would recommend, and I might be biased because I'm a therapist, I would recommend seeking professional help from a mental health professional, because that really helps you, one, seek really good skills to navigate the symptoms of, mood swings, depressiveness. The other thing that, it can help with is learning some mindfulness and mindful breathing that can actually help even with vasomotor symptom management. So even to breathe through a hot flash, it has been known to be effective. So seeking mental health help would be the other thing I'd recommend. And I think the other piece is the lifestyle part of it, right? Which is, and whether it's the mental health professional or your GP, they're going to be talking about lifestyle. What are you eating? How much is your body moving? How much time are you spending just, being mindful and doing some calming exercises during the day or self-care during the day? So that's the other part of it, which is the lifestyle piece. And the one that I think, so that's the care part of it, right? I like to think of it as, what can women do? One is look at your care team. Who's on your care team? Medical, non-medical. The second thing I think of is community. Who's in your community? Do you have friends you're talking to about this? Are they able to share their experiences? Do you feel heard? Do you feel seen? Because a lot of times women are feeling quite isolated. They feel that they're the only ones going through this and they don't know why. So even having a few other friends saying, oh gosh, this is happening to me too, me too. And then that may not take the symptom away, but that really brings a feeling of, I'm not alone, right? So friends, community. I mean, the two of you are setting up some fabulous like community networks. So I think that is really stepping up the game in one, opening this conversation, which has not been open, and two, connecting women with each other. And I think third, and maybe this is a challenge for the two of you to think about for next year, is bringing more men into this conversation, having partners actively engage in these communities can make a world of difference for the women experiencing it. So there you go.
Yeah, I think having the men in the conversation is definitely something, and I think we're exploring that in our Midlife Festival this year. We have a panel of men who are in the workplace gonna be sharing about maybe their thoughts, their perceptions, and how they can support and also go through their own midlife changes as well. Right, it's really important to have a male ally. We have one right here beside me, a young one. So I would say, after everything you've shared as a Gen Z, my takeaway is, of course, having the patience to communicate with my mom. And I think definitely really taking that small little steps, to starting that conversation, creating that safe space for them. Yeah, I mean, what would yours be?
I think in terms of male allyship, it's pretty important that we not only show how men can talk about more taboo and private female topics, but also look at how men can also advocate for their own problems and issues.
Yeah. And I think this is especially so important when it comes to workplaces.
That's true. That's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And I think a lot more women are in leadership roles right now, and they happen to also be in their midlife. Right, so we have heard a lot of, say, stories, not just from the fellow community ladies, but also like from our friends, sharing like how, so from the perspective of our community ladies, it's of course them going through this phase while working. So like hot flashes during their meetings, brain fog, especially during their presentation, and also just being really agitated at work, especially with their teammates who are younger. Then the younger stories would be, my manager is so irritating, right? I think she's PMSing, things like that, right? So then I think on this topic of workplace and possibly burnout, then again, how do we identify whether it's a burnout or is it just midlife changes?
I think this is where getting professional help is really important, because if you're feeling like you're not able to cope, things are getting quite hard, you feel quite overwhelmed, you feel anxious about the things that you could do very easily yesterday, but today for some reason you can't anymore. You find it hard to get out of bed. You're having anxiety going and making that presentation that you have made 100 times to 1,000 different clients, perhaps. So that's when you start to think of, wait, what's happening again? Like, why am I not feeling like I used to before? Why do I feel like I'm not on top of it anymore? And that's something that I hear quite often. I feel like I'm not on top of things anymore. I feel like I'm underwater. I feel overwhelmed. I would say that's when you seek some professional help to understand what might be happening, because there's so many things that could be going on. I don't want to jump to say it could be depression, it could be burnout, it could be perimenopause or menopause, and symptoms related to that can overlap with depression and anxiety. So there is an overlap in symptomatology when you're in perimenopause, and you might have symptoms that seem like depression. It might seem like anxiety. It might seem like, but the symptoms for perimenopausal or menopausal depression tend to be slightly different. So the assessment should be done by a professional. But again, I wouldn't in a workplace encourage anybody to diagnose any of their colleagues, just to be really clear. Please don't go and ask anyone, are you menopausal? Is this why this is happening? Those of us who are women know how annoying it is to be asked, are you PMSing right now? So it's similarly annoying. So please don't diagnose anybody. But if you find that somebody looks a little underwater, looks a bit weathered, is seeming like they could use some support, just check in. Check in and say, hey, I noticed that You were looking at you seem a bit off. Is everything okay? Is there anything I can support you with? Again, Valery, I think you started the show with the fabulous, like that anchor of curiosity. That is going to be so important in having these conversations, whether at home or at work, because it comes from a place of I'd like to learn, I want to help. How can I do it?
Yeah, I think one thing that we haven't really touched on is your experience and work at in DI, in corporate as well. I think when we want to build inclusive cultures and maybe promote corporate and workplace well-being, maybe what are some of the tips maybe companies or workplaces can do or maybe try and build when it comes to supporting midlife women in workplaces?
How much time do we have, Elmer? Maybe if I were to pick three things that workplaces can do, right? One, start to normalize this conversation. Really, and by maybe increasing awareness, holding trainings, having workshops, building a language around menopause that does not seem like it is only a woman's issue, because that's what I hear often. Oh, it's just a woman's thing. It's just a woman's. Well, it isn't actually. For all those partners involved, they're impacted too. For all those kids involved, they're impacted too. For the workplaces involved, all these high-performing, high-functioning women, they're not feeling so great. So they may not be turning up how they want to turn up. So your workplace also gets impacted. The culture might not always be supportive of it. And you want to retain these high-performing, senior women who have really sort of served the organization, right? So normalizing the conversation through increased awareness and learning programs. The other thing that I would say, the second one, is really having flexibility. So having a culture around flexibility. And this doesn't mean everyone gets to work from home every day, all the time, whenever you feel like. It does mean that if someone comes and says, hey, I need some time off, being able to say as a line manager, sure, why don't you take some time off? And if they say, can I just log back in a little bit later and I'll finish whatever's due? Sure. And it's that level of trust to not say, why, what's happening? Tell me why you had a hot flash, like you being moody again, just having that sense of respect that something is going on for an employee, for a, female leader, and just giving that space and respect for that person. So having a little bit of flexibility around that. And the third piece, and I think this is close to a lot of women who are working close to their heart, is start to rethink medical insurance coverage so that it can include things like, menopausal hormone therapy, mental health therapy, anything, TCM. So a lot of women will opt for TCM. So whatever the programs are to support women who are going through menopause, start to think about medical coverage ahead of them coming and asking for it, because that really sets the precedence to say, hey, we want to retain you, we want you to do well, tell us what you need. So those would be the three things that I'd say.
That's very interesting. Yeah, so I have this really interesting question, because I'm sure that the audience would be wondering, because you mentioned about how it is important for them to seek professional help.
Mm-hmm.
So then how can they start today when it comes to seeking help? What's the first step? We all know that taking the first step is so difficult. What would your advice be on this?
Yeah, it can maybe be a little bit scary, right? Oh gosh, do I need to go to a doctor? Do I need to go to a therapist now? Oh no, I've never been to a therapist. Who goes to a therapist? What will they do? So I think there's a little bit of that myth breaking that we can still do from our, as a profession. But there's also a lot of stigma, inside the society around this. Although I think Singapore's done a fabulous job on increasing mental health awareness over the last couple of years, and it's really only getting better, right? So it's been really amazing. I'd say the first step would be, one, acknowledge to yourself that this is important. You need the help, or you can get the help. And I think once you can acknowledge it, a lot of times women don't validate their own experience. They brush it aside. They say, no, I'm just going to put up with it. I'll bear it. I don't need anything. What's wrong? Mommy went through it. She didn't take any help. Why do I need anything? If you are finding it distressing to a point where it's creating discomfort in your day-to-day life, in your day-to-day functioning, I would say take a pause and say, hang on. is this what's happening to me right now? And then say, okay, maybe it is, and acknowledge and validate for yourself what's happening. Because until you do it for yourself, it's hard for anyone else to do that. And expecting that somebody else is going to do it for you may not always work out. So we can only be in control of what we can do. And I say this to a lot of my clients all the time. So I feel like a broken record. But if you can validate for yourself what is happening, that's your first step already. Then you'll realize, okay, now what do I need? Is it medical? Is it non-medical? Is it a friend? Can I reach out to Valery and Elmer and figure out how to go? Because I don't know who to go to. Who should I go to? So I think it's that.
So Kiki, what's that one thing women can do today? Like start right now, maybe breathing or whatever exercises you would recommend.
Yeah, if you're asking about how can women start to cope with these changes, what's happening, as I mentioned before, the first step is really acknowledging and validating your own experience and feeling. And this tends to be the hardest. It sounds the simplest, but it tends to be the hardest because women are not always used to having the space to acknowledge that something difficult is happening to them and that they might require the support that they deserve, So the first step would be, and this is a really simple grounding exercise that I would have, I would share with all your listeners. It's called dropping an anchor or ACE, and you can look it up. It's a really popular exercise. So A stands for acknowledge. So A, C, and E. So acknowledge. So acknowledge the difficult or uncomfortable feeling that you're having. So perhaps it's something like, I feel really frustrated that the barista gave me a cold coffee instead of a hot one. And I waited in line for 10 minutes. So that what I'm doing is I feel really frustrated is the acknowledgement. The C stands for, okay, now what? I come into my body. So I use my body. I ground my feet into the ground. I'm still standing in the barista line, so I can't do anything funny there. So I'm talking to you listeners who can do this in your workplace. You can do it, while your kids are playing on the side. This can be done anywhere, right? So come into your body, push your feet into the ground, maybe push your hands together or move your shoulders around to help your mind remember that you still have control over your body. So while you're feeling frustrated or annoyed or irritated, your mind hasn't got hooked. Your body hasn't got hooked. You're helping your mind say, hang on, I still have control and I can make space for this feeling of discomfort, whatever it might be. In this case, it's frustration. So you come into your body. And the third piece is engage. So it's engaging with the environment. And you can do this by engaging with the environment by, you see 3 things, you hear 2 things, and maybe you taste one thing, I might take a sip of my water. So it helps you connect back with what's happening so that feeling of frustration or stress or anxiety has not hooked you and taken you out of what's happening. You can get back to it. And I would say, so engaging and anchoring in a core part of who you are. And maybe that person is, I'm actually a really patient person, or I can be compassionate. I want to be more compassionate. So let me be a little bit more compassionate with this barista saying, hey, could you please give me I think I ordered for a hot coffee. You gave me a cold one. Could I please get the hot coffee? So you have been able to navigate that distressing emotion, use your body to help your mind get unhooked, and then engage back with the environment, anchoring on a value that that you stand for. So that's what I would say. So acknowledge, come into your body, and engage. So ACE.
Interesting. It sounds like there's a lot of awareness work when it comes to wanting to do this exercise. So Kiki, just a very last, very curious and candid question. So you said, you are a psychotherapist. So when I first heard of psychotherapists, let's say I don't Google, I'm like, are you gonna psycho me or something? Are you gonna sing the pendulum and I'm just gonna fall asleep and you're gonna ask me anything and everything's gonna come out? So what exactly, when you think of the word psychotherapist, what should people first think of?
I mean, I wish I could read your mind, right? I wish, but that's not true.
Get all the secrets out of me.
That is a myth. That is a myth. Let me just break that myth. I cannot read your mind. There is no pendulum involved. Okay. In most therapy rooms, it's a chair that I'm sitting on, and the client is either sitting on a chair or sitting on a couch. There is no beautiful leather bag that nobody's lying down. No. So typically it's not, what we see in the movies. And it starts with, a conversation like this, where you'd walk into the room, we would have a little bit of a conversation just for me to do some introduction. And then I would ask you saying, so how can I help? Or how can I support you today? And that's where the conversation starts. So it's really two people, or if, because I work with couples, it's 3 people. We really start from a point of meeting people where they're at and then helping them travel to where they'd like to be. And that tends to be a place of a more fulfilling life where they can see different things happening for them than what's happening right now. And so that's really the journey.
What's your thought, Elmer, when you heard of the word psychotherapist? Like,
Yeah, I think something similar as well. Yeah, but I think it's super important and interesting that I think therapy doesn't need to be a one-on-one session, right? I think this can happen as a couple, as a family, because I think what we shared about earlier in the podcast is that, well, this is a community thing, right? Relationships, conversations are very important, and this doesn't really need to happen from, just on the lady who is going through menopause on that level, right? It can happen between a couple, it can happen between a mother and her child, right? I think starting this conversation, driving this awareness is very, very important, even in therapy.
Yeah, I think especially how we want to create like a community, right? We want to involve, not just say the woman themselves, we want the spouse, we want the kids. How does it work? In any cases, have you ever had a family come into the room and sit down and be like, Kiki, I need your help to make us better?
So I don't work with kids. I work with adults, and so I have couples who come in often saying, we're doing really well, but like there are a few areas that we'd like to get better at. So not everyone comes into therapy during crisis, and I would actually encourage people to think about that as another aspect, because when you come in with crisis, it's different kind of work, and it's not always it's to help you manage the crisis, right? But a lot of times, people aren't coming with crisis. They're coming with, hey, how can I be better here? I want to do this a little bit better. We've been married for more than 25 years, and the kids have just left. And we want to get better at something else, or we want to do something else together. So how do we do that? So there's those type of conversations that happen quite often. And yes, when it comes to male partners, the female partner is perimenopausal or menopausal, it's quite natural that parts of the relationship get impacted quite significantly. Whether it's the mood swings, whether it's the lowered libido, whether it is the sudden change of social interests or even socializing. And so a lot of times there's a little bit of confusion, that the male partners have, saying, I don't even know what's happening anymore. I don't recognize this. What's going on? And I was looking up this word. I'm going to try and say it accurately. It's called discombobulation, which is that absolute confusion. And that's what I see in my room, which is, Kiki, can you help me say something which is not going to make her mad?
Right.
And so there's also that level of awareness and support that we can do for the relationship, because with all the best interest and intent, a lot of times men don't know how to enter the conversation because they're not experiencing it and they don't want to say anything wrong. So it's that other piece of like being able to bring them in, helping them, educating them. That's the other thing that we can do as when couples come in to help them thrive.
I think we are approaching the end of the podcast. Perhaps, Kiki, if you would like, one key takeaway that the audience can have from today's session, what would you say?
I'd say whether it's you experiencing these symptoms or somebody close to you going through this, if you can champion the conversation, so if you can be that champion either for yourself or for that person, that could be a very powerful way to start having a little bit more openness and awareness around this and helping that individual through the level of change that they may be experiencing. So I want to say be a champion, but really be that champion, So either it's for yourself, and I would say this to all our female listeners who are listening, really champion for yourself. Don't wait for anyone else to do it. go ahead and ask for what you need.
Right.
Yeah, no, I feel like we are champions for Midlifers. We are Gen Z champions. No, thank you so much. It's a huge thank you to Kiki for joining us here at Midlife Decoded. And also, Midlife Festival 2025 is coming. So do check us out. And Kiki will be joining us for Midlife Festival as well.
Yeah, I think Kiki will be speaking on a topic that is probably very close to everyone's hearts. I think mental health, super important, and would love to hear your insights during the festival itself.
Okay, thank you so much, Valery and Elmer, for having me. And, again, it is so inspirational to see the work that the two of you are driving for women in Singapore and hopefully worldwide at some point. Congratulations, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. And we are champions for, I think, everyone in the menopause space as well.
Yes.
I'm Elmer.
I'm Valerie. This is Midlife Decoded. Thank you so much. That's today's dose of Midlife Decoded powered by Surety. If it helped, follow us on our socials at SuretySG and share this with your friend in their next chapter. I'm Valerie.
And I'm Elmer.
Till next time.